Welcome back to Les Schwab Tire Center's Outdoor GPS, presented by Fisherman's Marine and Outdoor. Now it's time for your weekend tech tip, brought to you by Chevy Silverado.
Welcome back, everyone. Now, the question was specifically for a tech tip on plunking for spring chinook on the Columbia. That's how that question was actually posed. What I'm going to show you is my go-to rig. That was the question. What's your go-to? What's the number one rigging or bait that you would use if you're going to go plunking? Now, for a lot of you, you already know what the answer is. But for a lot of folks that are new to it, or for even those that may have different takes on the same concept, this is what we're going to talk about. We've got just the old school spin and glow and spreader. And this is one of the best parts about plunking, is that you don't have to get too crazy, right? I mean, you can go as crazy as you want, and trust me, there's plenty of folks out there that do. First thing I'll say, for spring chinook, I like the next size up spin glow. This is not a size 2, although I'll admit there are times, especially in clear water, if I'm plunking for springers, that this is by far a very, very good size. I'm terrible with the sizes. I believe that this would be the size 6, but don't hold my feet to the fire on that. But a size 2 is the standard, everyday spring chinook size of spin and glow. The skirt that's on here, I actually make these by hand, so these aren't actually something that you can buy. You can make them. It's just a simple deer hair dyed chartreuse. This particular one, we use pink, orange, and chartreuse. It's just got a little tube here, and then we make them ourselves with super glue and some string. It's not a big deal, but you can use hoochies, a number of different things. I really like having something there for a little extra profile. The vast majority of folks that are out there are just using a spin and glow, a bead, and a hook, which is totally fine. Now, again, with the skirt on there, it just gives you a little bit more contrast, especially if the water's a little off color, or if it's dark outside, they can see that profile a little bit better. And you can see that this one still has some stretchy string on there, and you can tell that it was probably a shrimp tail on there, although it could have been an egg sac or a spawn sac. Can't really recall offhand, but at the very least, that's the business end of it. 3 4/0 hook, pretty much standard. This is a 3/0, by the way. Then I think where things get more important, because again, there's so many different baits that you can plunk with. And by the way, just to briefly throw a little bit of a report out there, I can't say too much because I might get in trouble. Although I think my buddy's probably fishing, so he won't know. But these cut plugs from Yakima have been producing, being plunked already. So might be something like that in front of it here in the future. We'll see how that goes. Here's where it's more important though. When you're plunking, you're making long casts in a lot of situations, not always. Right now, the water's high enough, off color enough, where depending on where I'm at, I might very well just drop it outside my rod tip and keep that bait within 8-10 feet of the bank, depending on what the situation is. But you're not going to be making a long cast in these situations, just mainly because currents are going to be very, very fast, off-color conditions. So these fish are going to be relatively close to the bank, a lot closer. Here's the advice I guess I would throw in there if you're new at this. When you're out there plunking and you see some of the regulars that are literally casting feet off the bank, there's a reason for that. One of the best tips I can give you, if you're new at it or if you've been doing it forever, is you always want to pay attention to everybody else that's around you so that you can see what there might be maybe a travel lane where the fish actually are, maybe even what folks are using. But keeping your eyes open and your head up is a very important thing to do, no matter what kind of fishing you're doing. So pay attention to that. I believe, though, in this question, it was somebody that was new at chasing springers on the bank. Here's where the hard part's going to be. These 360 spreaders, which you can see here, this is just a long arm on a 360, and it just spins around so that when you make your cast, that's all this is for, that it keeps your spinning glows away from your main line. Now, here's the hard part, is finding these, okay? Fisherman's does carry and has carried this exact one in the past, but that doesn't mean that they still have them now commercially available. I believe that Oregon Tackle still makes a 360 spreader bar for plunking. Again, go over to Fisherman's. They may have them in stock there. If not, you might be able to look at the Oregon Tackle website and find them there. But that's always been kind of a hard thing to find. I will admit, though, that these are super easy to make. If you have any experience making your own spinners, this is very similar to that. It's just putting that arm on there. That might be, maybe that should be the tech tip. Maybe, what are we doing here, Ryan? Maybe I should have done that. But that's kind of the hard part of this puzzle to find. Is it essential? No. You can get away with a three-way swivel. I will admit, though, the longer you can keep it away from your main line, the further away, I should say, the more apt you are to be able to make that cast and actually have it land with all your gear still fishing. That's where the important things come into play. All right, so that's the first one. The second one was specifically, I love this question too, because it is the hardest egg bite there is, in my opinion. I could be wrong, but in my opinion, which is what all this stuff is, it's the egg bite in Oregon City, okay? And the question was my favorite cures that I like to use, in particular for steelhead eggs that are being cured. I think you'll find, though, in my tech tip, the cures are important, but it might not be the most important thing. We'll be back with that in just a minute.
Outdoor GPS is brought to you by Yakima Bait, steeped in tradition, innovation, and fishing success. Procure Bait Sense, ruthlessly effective. And by North American Metals Incorporated, first choice for all your metal roofing and siding needs.